Good evening. What I'd like to present to you at this point would be the technology budget as proposed for the 18-19 school year. And I have my cursor right in the middle of that. The format that I'm going to use to present to you is the same format that I've used over the past 3 years that I've presented this budget. I'm going to go through each major object by object, and we'll compare what we had last year to this year, and at the end then we'll see where we stand with on the budget compared to last year to this year. So I give you a 2-year look back, or a 1-year look back basically. So the first object that I want to start with is the 300s, or the purchase professional and technical services. So what falls under this object is the Microsoft Campus Agreement, which is everything to do with Microsoft that we need to power the computers, but it's all the Windows licensing, it's the Office licensing, it's SQL licensing, so it's anything that comes from Microsoft. We belong to a consortium with the whole county, with Bucks County, so we get our pricing through Bucks County as well. There's more staying power than us just going to Microsoft. So there is definitely some strength in numbers, so that's where we come up with these campus agreements. We also, in this purchased professional and technical services, are networking, consulting, and help desk support fees. So this is anything that we need to go to somebody outside of our individual staff where we need some extra help. One of the examples would be this past year when we did the whole network refresh and we needed a little bit more expertise than we possessed internally, rather than paying like an E+ where we purchased our equipment from under purchase services. We go to a network consultant that we do use, and his rates are a lot cheaper than an E rate or an E+ technology rate. So that's where we come up with our network consulting fees. We belong to a technology pool consortium. Again, that's through the IU. So that cost is in here. And then staff training and development, and that's for my own staff. So any kind of classes that my staff are taking and they're getting reimbursed, that's under here as well. So you can see that between last year and this year, we are decreasing by $17,750. So each year we try to become more and more independent, and we bring this down a little bit more. Moving on to the 400, this is purchase property services. And I've broken this object down into actually 2 slides. So this first slide, we're looking at the technology device leases. As you know, we do a lot of leasing here within the district. So I've broken out the high school one-to-one initiative classes of 2019 through 2022. You can see that we lease them for 4 years. So you can see what it's come down each year. For the class of 2022, that's still an estimate at this point. We don't have the final numbers from Lenovo, so I'm estimating it should be about the same. I put a little bit extra fluff in there, but I just don't know quite an exact number yet, so that's why you'll see an estimate there. Then for our elementary teacher laptop lease, we are in year 3 of 4. You can see that that's $63,800. Middle school teacher laptops, we're now going into year 2 of 4 lease, a 4-year lease. And then STEM last year, we leased 105 devices for the STEM program. They're asking for another 105 devices, which is 35 per each school. So basically, they'd like another laptop cart to be dedicated to the STEM program. Right now, this year, they have 1 laptop cart for STEM 1 and STEM 2. And STEM has taken off wildly. I mean, it's wildly successful. So they are asking for devices in STEM 1 in 7th grade and in 8th grade as well, so that they're not sharing back and forth. And then the last line item there is the network switches. Again, we did the whole refresh last year of the network switches. The lease payment for that is $143,000. So you can see here, just for this portion of the purchase property services, that I'm showing a decrease of $47,374. And that is due largely, mainly, almost totally, because the network switches, I had overestimated that for last year. I had put into the budget for $185,000, because again, I didn't have those total numbers when it was budgeted, and it came in that it was $143,000. So that's where that decrease is coming. We just never really spent that extra money, so it's decreased from the budget from last year. The second part of purchase property services is on the next slide, which is slide number 4. And I apologize, my slide numbers are a lot smaller than Dr. Wyarker's were. I should have made them a little bit bigger there. But this is where the maintenance contracts come in, and computer maintenance and repairs. So we pay maintenance contracts for VMware, which is our virtual server environment, Barracuda, which is our email archiver, Jamf, which is our management system for our iPads, SmartNet is for Cisco, so that's Cisco support. So all that falls in under this 400 as well. There's a small decrease of $2,900 there from last year. Then the next slide, slide 5, is actually the combination of those last 2 slides that we looked at. So for the total 400 purchase property services, it's decreasing $50,000. And again, that's largely because it had been over budgeted, unfortunately, the year before for the switches. So that's why we're seeing a decrease there. The 500 object is other purchase services, and mainly what falls under here is our communication transport costs. So we pay for our internet, obviously, like we do at home as well, only we pay a lot more for it. So we have internet service provider costs to the Bucks IU. Again, we're part of a consortium. We get our internet, our regional wide area network services through the IU, and then we have the Synesis, cost to Synesis, which is our fiber wide area network. So again, the cost is a pretty hefty fee. And then there's general property liability insurance in there and travel for the technicians between the buildings. So that's pretty much constant. We're in contracts with the IU and with Synesis, so that remains pretty stable throughout the years, or throughout, I guess, a 4-year period. The 600 is a pretty hefty portion of the budget here. So this is software and supplies. So what we're seeing here are the annual subscriptions and support for the big heavy hitters, the data applications throughout the district. So for PowerSchool, which is our student information system, InfoSnap, which is our online registration, annual support and subscription fee, our financial system, which is eFinance Plus, web filtering, board docs, which you're using every meeting here. So that's all part of software and supplies. The other thing that is within this object is our middle school technology, which I had come before you 2 months ago, I guess, and we talked about getting the 7th graders devices next year, the same devices that the 6th graders have this year. It's the N23, which they don't make anymore, so now we're scrambling. It's now called the 300E or something, so it's the next version of it. So that falls under here as well. So it's the laptops and the carts for the 7th graders, and then the consumables and the supplies, printers, projectors, adapters, docks, that all falls under here as well. So this used to be, I guess, the 700s as well, and then everything last year, I think, from the 700 object, which was equipment, and it's all rolled into now the 600s. So that happened, I guess, 2 years ago. So there's a small decrease here. I was able to bring some of the supply line items down a little bit based on the actuals for this year. We're underspending a little bit, so I was able to bring that down a little bit. The last big area or big object here is technology infrastructure, and here's where the main increase for my budget is. Last year we had budgeted $25,000. This year you can see that it's up to $96,875. And this is to bolster the wireless access points and the wireless access at the middle schools. As we're increasing, the devices at the middle schools, we have to make sure that the kids can connect in every classroom. So this is all E-ratable. So I've applied through the E-rate Category 2 funding for help with this part of the budget here. So it's the wireless access points, it's the
question. Your E-rate comment, you didn't budget for the E-rate reimbursement, or did you?
So the 96,000 there would be our portion of it. So it's actually 181,000,
Right, so
and then we get 50%.
Right, so it is budgeted into
You
there
got it.
effectively.
Correct.
Thank you, that's what I was.
Sure. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear on that.
No, it just wasn't clear. Ms. Kraut?
Is that E-rate reimbursement, is that a sure thing, or, what are the chances? that-
Nothing's a sure thing, but usually if you apply and you go through the rules and you meet their certain criteria, then it is granted. So it really should be. Again, it's not a sure thing, but there's so much money put aside for the E-rate, and I'm pretty confident that we'll get it.
I have some questions that are somewhat related to this, but not exactly. Since we're expanding, this one-to-one program that we have going on at the high school, we had a discussion, I don't remember, a year ago probably, about how students can't print at home, and supposedly there was this whole solution, and then I never heard about it again, and now I guess it came up again the other day that never was actually solved. So I'm just wondering, do we have a solution? Do we have a way that kids can actually print from home?
So Windows 10 has built in many of the drivers that the kids can utilize. The issue is we don't allow the students to download their own software. Like, they're not local. Why we don't have that. So with that, saying you're not a local admin, they can't go home and just download the drivers that they need for their home printer, and there's so many different home printers. So some of the students are successful with being able to a printer that's inherently part of Windows 10, they can print at home. So we've solved it but not solved it. So there are still some issues, absolutely, of some students printing from home. So their options then are to come into school. They have printers, designated at school where they can print, or they can email it to another computer or something like that. But that's why we have it locked down, though, just so we can control what is being downloaded, so that we know what's on that computer.
Okay, and then we talked about, you said a quasi one-to-one program at the middle school, because we're going to have enough laptops for it to be one-to-one, but they're not going to be carrying them around with them. And I'm just wondering, we're also expanding Canvas to the middle schools, and you can do a lot of online coursework by having Canvas. And I'm just wondering if we could move in the direction where students on snow days could be doing their assignments from home on Canvas, and it's still doing classwork and communicating with teachers electronically.
So, that's something that we would have to, I guess, work out with the curriculum department as well. So, but as more and more of the students have their own, device, obviously we could look at something like that. What I'm not sure how that would work, and again, this is really not, we can only facilitate it or say, hey, the student has a laptop. I'm not sure how that would work if the elementary students don't have a device. So I don't know how it would work. So, okay, the high school students all have a device, and they could log in, and the teacher could deliver content, but then the elementary school student is still missing that day. So I'm not sure how that would work, Megan, and that's a little bit beyond me. So, but I know last night at the conversations that we were having at the steering committee, it was brought up 2 different times, and it was brought up by the kids.
Yes, I was going to say my student partner who was in my group was very excited about the idea of doing the classwork at home in her pajamas instead of coming in June. So
and there was another young man there as well, and he brought the same thing up. So again, I think that would be a conversation that would have to take place above just the technology department for sure. But it sounds like a great idea. I just don't know the logistics of how that would work.
Actually, I'm the one that brought it up, and Evan answered the question. He made it sound so simple, like coming to the library, and I made it sound more difficult, that it's not always available, blah, blah, blah. But he was very accommodating to
Correct.
Bringing his printing to school.
Yeah,
There was a
correct.
teacher at the table that said he didn't want it, he needed it printed, remember? He needed to
Yes, one of the
put his
teachers
hands on
did
the
say.
paper.
So, and they're all at different levels, and they all, they all grade different ways, and it's people's
Yes.
preference the way
Absolutely.
they can handle it. So, yes.
Are you
Good.
going, Bill?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, hi, I have a
Hi.
couple of questions.
Sure.
I guess the first one's for Mr. Goldberg. Is it possible to get the 16, 17 actuals for these objects?
Yeah.
Okay, if you could get them. I guess the next question on slide 2, under the 300 level, you spoke a little bit about our use of consultants.
Correct.
Specifically, I'll speak to JLR. Right? Do you have a plan to develop in-house resource to be less reliant upon JLR?
So some of my staff, I'm pushing in the direction to go after some of their certifications, so yes.
Okay. Okay. Takes care of that one. Slide 3, I guess for the class of 2022, that's your estimate on slide 3, 121,000.
Mhm.
Do you know the quantity of devices? Are you estimating quantities as well?
So yes, I am estimating quantities of 650 student laptops there, and the other thing that's rolled into there, because I wasn't quite sure how to break it out, would be 40 teacher devices as well that will be leased, because some of the teachers still have the old HPs,
Gotcha.
so we're making sure that everybody has, one of the newer touchscreen. So
Okay.
there's still a few teachers on the older models,
No.
which we've heard about too.
Okay, so let's skip to slide 6. General property and liability insurance. Can you help me out with that, Mr. Goldberg?
It's a generalized description, but that's the technology insurance.
Okay.
That's the cyber insurance.
Okay.
Yeah, we break them up into the different budgets. We try to break up the entire insurance package into the budget. We put the lion's share of the property insurance in the Jeff's budget. We put the lion's share of the insurance for the vehicles and the transportation budget. She gets the cyber insurance.
So you brought up an interesting point. Do we carry liability insurance for cyber attack?
Yes, we have that.
Okay.
It's part of our package.
Okay. I'd be interested in to what value.
Okay.
Slide 7, maintenance agreements.
Mhm.
It's just a general question based on that. I'm assuming all of these maintenance agreements include free of charge upgrades when available?
Not necessarily, it all depends on who they are. So when you say free of charge, so Power School, yes. InfoSnap, yes. eFinance Plus, we're actually looking at upgrading that now, like we're in conversation with them. So the upgrade is free, but you might have to pay for the training. So there might be some cost associated with it, but, so yes, to a point, but there might be an asterisk with some of them.
Okay. Is that something that's negotiable when we get these maintenance agreements, Mr. Goldberg?
So, we can certainly, like I said, for like a Power School or an InfoSnap, they come out with the upgrade and we're entitled to it. So yes.
And I know, from my own experience in industry, some of these maintenance agreements can be quite expensive. And
Absolutely.
you get down to you paying $30,000, $40,000 a year. What am I getting for that?
Yeah. Oh,
Right.
absolutely. And it's the support,
Yeah.
and they have you have to support it. So,
Yep.
you don't have much of a choice there. So,
Okay.
but I understand what you're.
I'd just like to, as they come up, let's look
Yeah,
at
and we
them see
review
what we can
everyone when they
push.
do come up. So we do review it and it goes to the solicitor for review as well.
Okay, last question. Slide 8, the access point installation and upgrades at the middle school.
Mhm.
Why would we not cover that under capital? That's a one-time expense.
Because we're getting the E-rate, because it's part of the infrastructure, so we can get the 50% E-rate on it. So, I guess we just put it under
Because next year that
infrastructure.
goes away, right? This is a one-time expense, and so that increase that we're looking at of 71,000 should be a one-time expense.
Unless there's another area
That needs upgrading.
that needs something like that. Right.
Okay. Does it make sense to look at it under capital, or am I goofy?
You could, to me, it's not high.
It's minimal.
It's minimal to be capital, but
Okay.
if, Yeah. Wish we had to.
Okay, I'm just curious. Okay, that's all I got. Thank you.
Can we get a breakdown of those, of the subscription costs, the maintenance agreements, and, you know, what all the breakdown of those costs are? And then, I constantly get this question, what is our, do we have a public Wi-Fi password now, right? Like, is that something that we can share with anyone who's coming in here and, you know, in the building for things?
We do not have a public Wi-Fi password as of yet. So, and the students have made things a little bit challenging at the high school, and there's this thing called AirDrop now, and they've been sharing the password via an AirDrop on their iPhones. So we are working on making a safe public access for them.
So the students, how did the first student get it?
We have no idea, Megan.
And now they're sharing, so they can share it with anyone?
You can share, look up how AirDrop works on your iPhone. You don't need to know what the password is.
But you could change the password and then
We
they
could,
can
but there's
access it.
people who are legitimately on there as well, so we're in the middle of standing up another SSD or another SSID for them, so another, there are people who are legitimately on like the guest network, so when we change that password, then we have to go around and hit all of them as well.
So can you set up a new one and have those people transfer?
Well, and that's what we're in the middle, that's what we're doing right now, so yes. Yes. Kids are smart, man, they're smart. So, and it's not like they're hacking, it's not a hack, it's just something, somebody somewhere got the password shared from, very innocently, could have been shared by somebody who wasn't even sure they were sharing it with them, because it's device to device. So it's something that Apple, the latest Apple update, the iOS 11 has started.
So as soon as you reset it, they'll probably figure out.
That's what so that's why the only way to really get ahead of it is to open up a public, a very small portion of the public network, correct? And we've been talking about it, but we've run into some technical issues.
And just to be, you know, kind of set that expectation, that needs to be a completely separate area.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so it
Yes.
can't be connected to our main network I mean, it's
Correct, and then it's
separated.
throttled so that they can only take up so much of an access point, so that, you know, their phones aren't taking up, you know, everything on the access point, and their computers are
Exactly.
dog slow because,
Yep.
you know, their phones are connected. So,
Isn't technology
Mrs.
wonderful?
Yarden? No.
Hi, I just have one question. On page, or slide 4, you talk about the maintenance contract, and I was just wondering if you had considered or looked into at all becoming like a maintenance provider. I've heard that some school districts do that, and then like with Apple or something, they become a certified Apple repair center, and then they repair their own
so
things, you know, and then they get money back for doing that, and then other people can send their stuff as well. I don't know if we have the staff for that, or if it's something you had considered, or something you could look at in the future.
So we had looked at, like, having our staff become Lenovo certified, because, you know, to actually fix the Lenovos, but I don't have, at this point anyway, but we're, you know, adding some members, I don't have the staff, the personnel to do it. Not that they couldn't do it, I don't have the manpower to, like, say somebody's going to sit there and repair the computers all day long. I just don't have the manpower to do that. So, but those contracts that I'm talking about would be, it's actually, so JAMP, for example, is our mobile device management system for our iPads. So that's the support, the contract for that piece of software. we probably wouldn't send as many out to them. We would still have to send some out because I don't know if we could become that certified, you know what I mean, like for some of the really technical ones. So, but the contracts that are under that object that you're looking at would not have a savings there.
Thank you.
I just have a question about, you mentioned a few consortiums, and I was wondering, because I know Peter talks about how the health insurance consortium isn't a great deal for some of the schools. So do we ever check into the history or compare it to what some other people are getting on the outside? Are our consortiums a good deal?
So when we like work with the IU, like they will show us, you know, some of the what the savings are. So if we approach Microsoft, just say by ourselves, and we're 7,300 students, they're not going to overly accommodate us. But when we come with, and I don't think every district is part of that consortium, but when we come with, you know, the 22 school districts, it's a lot more impressive. Where the, how many school districts? 15? In the county, 17? 13. So, but we've got Central Bucks, you know, we've got some big heavy hitters there, so they take a little bit more notice of us. So in a consortium like that, and we don't pay to be in that consortium, it's just kind of a grouping.
I just have one quick question. As we move along through what year is this, year 5 that we're into the one-to-one?
Correct.
I just want to double check that you still feel it's fiscally responsible to be to leasing these computers as opposed to purchasing them, correct?
So, yeah, I mean, so,
I think we just need to check on that every.
and Sean can help me out with that because we're either putting it all out at one time or we're spreading it out. And I get what you're saying there, but, you know, this just helps to spread it out a little bit more so that the burden's not all at one time.
I just need, you know, moving along, and I just need to make sure this is still viable.
It is, and the lease factors are extremely cheap, almost to the point where it's as cheap to lease them as it is to buy them straight out. And then at the end of 4 years, instead of us having a very big problem to
Get
deal
rid of
with,
them.
it's their problem.
Okay, I just wanted to double check.
Yes.
that, Just as prices and cost change, okay.
Well,
Thank you.
Can you give us those numbers of what the leasing costs are? Because it is an additional cost to lease as opposed to purchasing it. So can you just give us the breakdown of what all of those leasing fees are for all of those?
So it's different each year, so it's the rate factor. So last year, as Sean just said, it was actually, the rate factor was actually less than, we paid less for the equipment than had we purchased it outright last year. So, and I can provide that information to you again from last year. I don't have this year's yet. As I said, we're still working towards that.
Are there any other questions? If not, then we'll thank you, Mrs. Miller, for the presentation. We'll move on to the last presentation, which is Mr. Dauber doing the